I'm Craig Kenneth, a relationship coach and a psychotherapist. Every relationship is different and every breakup is different. Work with me and you'll get professional help on your situation. And if you're in no contact, focused on personal growth, my workbook series, The Knowledge, will help you make changes like you've never made before. Available now at AskCraig.net. Hi there, I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And in this video, we're going to be talking to you about my long-term girlfriend is interested in another guy. Very painful.
Yeah.
Relationships are not easy, and long-term relationships take a lot of work. They take a lot of patience and a lot of understanding. But not only that, you have to really value your partner and have fun with them.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people make the mistake of just thinking that person is going to stay with you for, forever, regardless of how you treat them or how you treat the relationship. And that's simply not true. We have to make our partner a priority. We have to make our relationship a priority. We have to try and have fun. Romance is supposed to be playful and it's supposed to be fun. But a lot of times after we get with somebody for a long time, we kind of neglect that and just get into a routine.
Right. And we don't live in a bubble. And when you're with a partner for a long period of time, it can kind of feel like you're in a bit of a bubble.
Yeah.
But there are other people around. And, even through research, there's a lot of research that talks about commitment levels and the opportunity for other partners out there. So we have other videos where we talk about being her best option,
Mm-hmm.
being their best option or his best option. And so these are things that we have to consider when we're in a relationship. Complacency is something that can happen often in these long-term relationships. It can affect anybody, and we have to be able to maintain our mental health, right? Sometimes we let our own mental health slip up,
Mm-hmm.
and it affects our relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and so on and so forth.
Yeah. There are a lot of reasons a relationship can slowly fall apart. So you have to always actively make it important to you to take care of it. Like a plant that you care about, right?
Uh-huh.
Or something that you care about, you have to nurture it and you have to make it a priority. If you don't, you just get more and more disconnected. And a lot of times people get to a point where they've been unhappy for so long, they decide to leave.
Right.
And look at other options. And, a lot of times we can get really hurt and really angry. Oh, they left me for someone else. Okay, but were you being a good partner to them? You can't ignore that. Like if you're just ignoring how you treated them, and then them leaving, I mean, of course they're going to leave if you're neglecting them for a long time.
Right. And sometimes we can get used to our own misery. We kind of forget that we have agency in the world, that we can change certain things in our life to make our situation better. But our partner might discover this sooner, or our partner might just have a different perspective.
Absolutely. So I've got a good email coaching today that I thought would be helpful. This is from a guy in his late 50s dating a woman in her early 40s, and they've been together for over 15 years. So he starts off by saying, I didn't see it coming. She had a strange behavior the night before. And when I asked why, the next morning she told me, we have to talk. So for this guy, this comes out of nowhere after being with this woman for over 15 years.
Yeah, and we have to talk. I know all of your hearts are sinking just hearing that.
Those words together. Run the other way.
Take your anxiety medication now.
All right. Then she told me she had met someone 6 or 7 months ago. She said straight away that nothing happened physically with that guy. Now, I've been doing this long enough to know that it could be true, but a lot of exes lie. And I've had so many people over the years say, not my girlfriend. She would never, ever lie. She would never cheat. And then months later, they say to me, yeah, I couldn't believe it. You were right. They were lying. They were cheating.
Oh.
So
even if this was true, the implication here is that a lot of things had happened emotionally with the guy, right? If you have to put the emphasis on physically, then it makes me think, just as a listener and as a reader of this email, that there probably was quite a bit emotionally.
Yeah.
So it seemed like there were some maybe boundaries that were slipping. We know that there's more to the picture, though.
Absolutely. Let's go on here. She also said that she tried to make sure she would never meet him again. Okay, so maybe they met somewhere and she genuinely thought, okay, I'm attracted to this guy and this guy's interested in me and I'm with my boyfriend, so I'm not going to try and keep this going. It could be a lie, but, sometimes these things are hard to know how truthful someone's being. She did admit that he was very attractive, but he got back to her. She said she pushed him away once or twice, but they eventually had a couple of phone calls together, and she finally decided to go with him. Okay, so this is tough because the newness of this guy, he's attractive, he's showing her interest. I don't know what the connection was like with him and her. He doesn't go into those details here, but you could see she's getting excited by the fantasy of this new guy.
I have a lot of questions already. It seems like he's finding out about this other person 7 to 8 months after the fact.
Yeah.
Here, that, she had met this other man.
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes me wonder what had happened throughout that 7 to 8 months. Had she mentioned his name before? Did he have any idea who this person was? Is this the first time he's hearing that, she is into somebody else?
It kind of sounds like that. It kind of does sound like this is the first time he's hearing anything about
it seemed like, she was off just the night before, and that's when he noticed, that something was in the airwaves there. So I wonder, were there any other signs in that 7 to 8 months?
I wondered the same thing.
He might have picked up on or might have missed, or is she really good at concealing things?
Was he avoidant? It's hard to say, right? That's what I'm saying. There weren't a lot of details that he led leading up to this. Let's go on now. So then I said, "You're telling me we have to break up?" She didn't answer, but she lifted her shoulders a bit and showed her hands like, well, I had just said it. I was in shock. All of a sudden, everything fell apart inside me. It took me an hour between the breakup announcement and the moment I left the house. It was actually very tender. We cried a bit. We hugged a few times. She told me she was loving me and that I was the man of her life. I couldn't answer. I think she meant I would remain the longest and deepest love of her life. She didn't want me to take my things. She wanted me to keep the house keys. So some mixed messages there. Don't take your stuff. Don't leave the key. And he's like shocked and confused. So a lot of times in that moment, you're going to try and talk him out of it, beg, plead, and make things worse.
Yeah. I'm also curious just about that 7 to 8 month period there. If she had brought him up, and it's normal in relationships for partners to be attracted to other people, right? We all have eyes.
Yeah.
We all interact with people. We don't live in a bubble. But I wonder if at any point she might have alluded to being interested in someone else.
Yeah.
She might have alluded to this other person pursuing her because it seemed like that was part of the dynamic with them. It's just curious to me how all of this was undercover for 7 to 8 months.
My guess, from what I can tell, is that she met this guy. He showed her some interest. She shut it down, but she liked the way it felt. He came back, pursued a little bit more, and kind of wore her down a little bit. Maybe things weren't going so good with him and her, and so she decided to entertain it. And she probably didn't tell him about this other guy. That's the feeling I get. Maybe he'll leave a comment on the video and let us know.
And what's interesting is I wonder, had she mentioned these things? Oh, there's this other person that's, into me or has been messaging me or has been trying to pursue me. How might have he responded? Would he have responded in jealousy or control? Might he have responded with, trying to woo her even more? Sometimes it can be very attractive to know that other people are attracted to your partner. It kind of makes you try to aim higher. You try to impress your partner. You try to say, wow, I have this person that's desirable. I desire them and others do too, and others see it, and I love that. So I just wonder how he would have reacted.
Yeah, it's hard to know. He says, the next 10 days were awful, terrible. I couldn't sleep or eat, and surprisingly enough, she couldn't either. She was in the same emotional, depressive state as I am. Okay, from what she told you, I mean, that could very well be true. They were together for over 15 years.
Yeah, I'd feel like losing an arm at that point.
She repeatedly told me on the phone that she hadn't called the next guy yet. And at some point, in kind of a nervous crisis, she said she didn't know what she should do. This was really painful for me. I must say she was having a terrible time too. Okay, so my guess is that he wasn't leaving her alone. At this point, he should have left her alone and said, look, call me if you change your mind, you want to fix this. But it sounds like he was probably talking to her. You know, you don't want to let them go. You want to have those conversations. Yeah.
It's a long time together.
Eventually, I understood that. She needed some time to go with that guy, but she would never change her decision. So I quite had to let her go myself. Okay. My therapist later told me that she had to push me away, but she didn't really want to, which is a little confusing.
Maybe because of her reaction. Also being really sad, tearful.
She was probably conflicted in some ways, but she still went through with it.
And that's the thing, the 7 or 8 months, right? And we know that relationships take time to build, intimacy takes time to build. And I don't just mean sexual intimacy, but even emotional intimacy.
Yeah.
So it seemed like there were some things brewing in the background here for those 7 or 8 months.
Yeah. I don't know how much truth she was telling this guy. I get the feeling, like I said, that it was a few times he would pop up, give her some attention, she would shoot it down, but eventually he kind of wore her down a little bit. That's what it feels like to me. She might have met a guy that may have a strong hold on her. Oh, this is what the therapist was interpreting. She might have met a guy that had a strong hold on her, possibly a toxic hold, she said from her experience. Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if this new guy is toxic. Right? He knows she's in a relationship with somebody for a long time. He's actively pursuing her. Yeah, this guy I would not be surprised if he was just doing it for the challenge or the thrill, right? A lot of people are like that.
Yeah.
I decided to break the no contact situation we were on afterwards because sadly I lost one of my family members right after. I was afraid my ex would call to send me a short text like sorry for your loss. But she called me right away and we talked for about 20 minutes about that. It felt good hearing her voice that day, but this made the next days even harder. A few days later, my ex sent a very short and kind text for my birthday. I answered the same way, instinctively. I sent my last message on Valentine's Day, a kind of eye blink with a few news about my family. I don't think his first language is English, by the way, just to let you know. People might be confused by some of this. Right? With a few news about my family. She answered shortly, but then I decided to go back into no contact. Now I wonder, considering this story and that every breakup is different, do you think I'm right in keeping hope that I could get her back someday? Okay, so obviously there were quite a few details that we were not getting from this situation. He focused on some of this parts of the story that I wish he had focused on other components instead of like some of the things that happened directly afterwards. I would have liked some of the information about the relationship more. Like, were there problems? What were the problems? And these are some of the things that I asked for you to send in with the email coaching. What are the problems? Were they constantly brought up? Was there fighting? I need to know these kind of things because all we know here is that she met a guy. Supposedly, if she's telling the truth, she kind of shut it down. He came back, pursued her, and now she's feeling the spark and the excitement of a new connection.
The issue that I have with this is how much was hidden from him. Just seeing the amount of shock that he had when he found out.
Yeah.
Given that it sounded like he found out at the same time as she was ending things and ending the relationship. That's pretty jarring for being with somebody for 15 years. And you would think sitting alongside someone for 15 years, you would have the nerve to say, hey, something's going on here and we need to figure out how to work through this, right? So it does make me wonder, was she hiding it for a reason? Was she hiding it? Did she not think that he would be, receptive or open to some sort of conversation about what was going on?
Mm-hmm.
And so it makes me wonder a lot of questions here.
Yeah.
Down to the facts, it seemed like things were hidden. He found out the entire relationship without him really having more of a chance to know what to do with that information,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. There are a lot of questions to this situation that we don't have the answer to. But at this point, he's got to really reflect, and he's got to look at the situation and think to himself, okay, what was going on here? Okay. First of all, how much of what she's telling me do I believe? Looking at and considering the details that we don't know, like where they met, maybe he knows how they met, how many times they talked that he didn't share with us. Maybe he knows some of that. What were the problems in the relationship? Had she been telling you she was unhappy? Maybe she had and he was ignoring it. Or maybe she hadn't. So he's got to really reflect on this and figure out through some of those details so he can navigate and figure out what to do here. Maybe he was neglectful. Maybe they had been drifting apart for a long time. The relationship was over 15 years. Not everybody is going to take care of and nurture their partner and treat them the way they needed to be. So we don't know why this fell apart. And if he figures out why this fell apart, that can really help him figure out what to do moving forward here, right? I mean, do I think it's going to last with this new guy? Probably not. It's probably some guy who has some infatuation to her, and he'll probably break up with her after 4 or 5 months, and then she'll probably come back again. That's what happens in many cases if you leave them alone. Now, if he's begging, pleading, trying to change her mind, that's not going to happen. But if he leaves her alone, I think he'll probably hear from her again, and then he can figure out what happened. But he's got to really figure out what happened.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The other side of this is that his trust is really affected at this point. Imagine being together with somebody for 15 years. I'd automatically said married just because it's a long period of time to be with somebody, right? So imagine having a life partner for, a decade and a half, and then finding out that there has been an emotional affair happening.
Yeah.
Right? For almost a year, right? If we round up quite a bit.
We're quite a bit of rounding there.
But, just to make my impact here, right? It would be really difficult to trust. You would be wondering what's happening there in the background, and you'd also be having some hard time trusting yourself. Am I somebody that somebody can open up to, that a partner can open up to? Why didn't this person tell me? Why wasn't this person open? What did this other person have that I didn't have?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of hurt and pain that I imagine that he's going through in this. So for those of you who are in no contact after maybe a 3 or 4 month relationship and you feel how hard it is, take a look at the story. Being together with somebody for 15 years, a decade and a half, it's a long time. And to show that restraint, to respect this person's space, especially when there's somebody else involved, I just can't imagine how difficult this is for him.
Yeah, this is a tough one because a lot of the details that I'm looking for and wondering about, he kind of left out. He could be avoidant. Based on the way he wrote this and being so shocked and disconnected from his partner makes me wonder if he was avoidant in the relationship, that he didn't see anything going on, any signs of this. Unless, of course, what he's saying is true, and she did push this guy away. She didn't really talk to him much, but eventually the idea and the fantasy of this new guy made her think, I'm leaving this relationship. It's not going anywhere. We're not married. He doesn't want to have kids. I don't think they have kids. And she's in her early 40s now. So maybe she thinks, oh, that window is past and we've been unhappy for some time here.
Right.
It's hard to say because he didn't really get into any of those details.
And this is something that I see a lot, right? I see a lot this kind of a situation where maybe there's a breakup and then your partner immediately goes off with someone else. And this isn't human nature, so I'm not blaming anybody, but I see this pattern where we often look at that other person, right? We say somebody took my partner left for somebody, and we focus so much on that and we miss just what we've learned throughout the relationship. We miss maybe the ways we might have mistreated our partner.
Mm-hmm.
We miss, the things that we missed in the relationship. And so while yes, we can go through a lot of betrayal and, these things aren't right, we're not justifying it. And I'm a huge believer that, there's no reason to lie or cheat, right? We have to be able to communicate with a partner, which is why I'm saying in this story 7 or 8 months of not saying anything.
Yeah.
Right? And we also have to be self-reflective. What are some of the inner workings of this relationship that may have contributed? We're not saying led, right? We're not saying that she emotionally cheated because of X, Y, and Z,
Mm-hmm.
right? But there's so many different contributing factors. Can we just take a magnifying glass and look at this?
Yeah.
So,
And that's what I think he has to do, and many of you going through a breakup have to consider is what made these things happen. Now, sometimes you were great partners and, you were very caring and empathetic and loving and courting your partner and being a great partner, and they did this anyway. But there are a lot of cases where the relationship slowly faded, it wasn't being taken care of, and the excitement of something new and the fantasy of something new makes somebody so excited that they follow that feeling. All right. A lot going on here.
A lot going on. And I'll also add, if you notice that something is going on with your partner, ask. Be able to have some of these conversations. I wonder if there might have been some strange signs that might have happened in those 7 or 8 months. Had he broached them? She might have had a moment of vulnerability with him. I'm not saying this is his fault or we can change the past, but just thinking towards things we can do in the future, ways we can have more direct conversations and open up these really, really hard conversations.
Well, if you want to have a conversation with us,
hopefully it won't be super hard. Hopefully it'll be a good conversation.
You can do that on my website, askcraig.net. I do email coaching and I do Skype. Coach Victoria is also available for Skype coaching.
I'm here whenever you'd like to chat.
Just click on her name on the top of the website to schedule with her. But that's it for this video. I'm Coach Craig Kenneth.
And I'm Coach Victoria.
And we will talk with you soon.